Hey, welcome to another episode of GeekOutdoors.com. And I just got done seeing the movie Batman versus Superman. Now, there are probably a bazillion reviews out there, so this is not really going to be a review, but what it is going to be is basically a comparison or a versus between Batman v Superman versus Deadpool, one of my definitely my favorite movies of the year, and my probably my top five for sure favorite comic book movie. And if you wanted to see my review on Deadpool, you could go ahead and go there if you wanted to see that. But overall, what did I think about Batman versus Superman? Well, as a movie as a whole, I really thought it was okay. Okay, and in terms of like the comic book movie and so forth, there's like mixed feelings about that. Yeah, and so what I mean by mixed feelings is that some things they like pretty much serve the fans. You know, like if you are really into comic books, you'll notice a lot of little nuggets in there that only like fanboys and fangirls would get, which is nice. And the mixed part is that they didn't really put everything together well. Now, I did want to tell you, whenever I'm doing this versus and I'm talking about these movies, there's going to be definitely be spoilers. So if you have not seen Batman versus Superman, or if you're one of the very few people who have not seen Deadpool, definitely go watch it first and then come back to this particular video. So let's go ahead and start with the verses, and I'm gonna basically talk about a few categories. And I just saw this movie, so a lot of this is gonna be fresh in my mind. So the very first thing I wanted to compare was the actual story, and this is where like Batman versus Superman has most of its weaknesses, because the story itself is, I would say, it's confusing and it's also convenient. And what I mean by confusing is, at the beginning of the movie, it's really a Batman movie. I mean, it shows how, Bruce Wayne's parents get murdered. And, that's been done many times before. But Zack Snyder, he is so stylish, and it just looks really, really awesome. And he did it really quick. So he didn't spend a lot of time going over how Batman became Batman. So that was really done really well. So at the beginning, it feels like a Batman movie. And then it shows shots of the Man of Steel when the whole destruction happens. And so, at the very beginning of the movie, there's a lot of like realism involved in Batman versus Superman. So you get a sense like, this is like reality, and seeing it from like Bruce Wayne's perspective, from of actually a human being's perspective, that was really, really nice. And then from there, it just kind of went like the whole confusing part. It didn't really know what type of movie it wanted to be. From there, it was like a mix of a Man of Steel Part 2 movie, where it focuses on, a Superman or Clark Kent's conflict with being Superman, with having to choose between being, himself or being this alter ego that he has. And then it just goes into this whole political aspect of it, and that's where it kind of like really took me off the whole movie, because there's a storyline in there where Lois Lane is she was rescued early in the movie, and then it just so happens this was kind of like a stage plot where it made Superman look like a murderer, and it's just really confusing, and a lot of the movie is spent on that, and then it kind of like mixes in Lex Luthor's part in there with it, and it's just really, really confusing. And though that whole part of the movie, that's where it confused me, and it really took me out of that movie, in my opinion, and it spent a lot of time on it. And that part of the story I didn't like at all. Now, whenever it got back to the Batman aspect, I really like that, and I'll get into the characters a little bit later, but that was done so well. And also, when it got back into like the Superman part of the story, I liked as well. However, there wasn't enough time to develop any of those things. And so, that was the confusing part of it. And then obviously at the end, the last half of the movie, it was just all action. And so that that was cool. I mean, in a lot of sense, it was cool, but it didn't really go well with the story, or its stories in this case, because there's lots of many other things. And also, let's not forget, this is a setup for the Justice League. So it really wasn't a Batman versus Superman movie at all. That part played very little in the movie. It was more of a Dawn of Justice movie, as others have probably mentioned. And so, Going back to the story itself, I liked the beginning. I did not like the after the beginning, the whole political part, but I really did like the action scenes. And unfortunately, when you get to the action part, the story doesn't really matter. So that was really cool. Now let's compare that story versus Deadpool. Now Deadpool, this is what I really love about it. Deadpool knew what it was. It wasn't trying to get into all these complex stories. It was a standalone Deadpool movie. It was a very simple movie. You got Wade. He has cancer. He just met this girl that he loves. And then he gets turned into this, or basically tortured into this mutant. And now he wants revenge. And that's pretty much it. And the story is very simple, but it's done much, much better. There was never a point in Deadpool where I felt like, man, I'm confused. It was more like, man, this is a really great movie, easy premise, and it also serves the fans as well, because there's a lot of nuggets in there that only comic book fans would get, but it was done a lot better. You actually wanted to watch the whole movie, and you weren't really confused. So, that's the comparison between the two stories. Okay, now let's go ahead and get into the actual characters. Now, this is where it's really, really a mixed bag, because you're kind of conflicted by it. And what I mean by that is this. Now, in Batman versus Superman, you have grade A talent all the way around. Ben Affleck, he's good. I think Henry Cavill still did a good job as Superman. My favorite is still going to be Christopher Reeve. Lois Lane, she did a lot more in this movie, but she was still a damsel in distress. You also had Holly Hunter. She was a politician. She did well. And, also you had Lawrence Fishburne in there. You had the amazing Jeremy Irons. All of these are top class actors and actresses. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk about Lex Luthor and also Wonder Woman. Now, Lex Luthor in this particular movie, he's not really the Lex Luthor that you're thinking of. This is actually Lex Luthor Jr. And he kind of talks about that near the beginning of the movie. So this isn't the Lex Luthor that you're used to. This is more like the crazy, super, super intelligent version of Lex Luthor, the younger version. And so if I took at it in that way, just thought about that way, he wasn't as bad, but it's still Jesse Eisenberg, very neurotic and so forth. So I didn't like him as much, but if you just took him separately as his own character in this movie, he does fine, Now, Gal Gadot, Wonder Woman, I really wish she was in the movie more, and I know she's going to have her own standalone movie, but a lot of people loved her in this movie, and I feel the same, She's very mysterious, but also when she gets into her Wonder Woman part of the movie, man, you're just like, I want to see more. Because anybody who's ever loved Wonder Woman, especially for me, I grew up watching Linda Carter's Wonder Woman. She's a powerful Amazonian, and she doesn't take crap from anybody. She's just a badass in this movie, and so I wish there was more of that. Now, the other characters in the movie, and I'm really talking about the Justice League snippets, of Flash, Aquaman, Cyborg. And I just really thought it was not done really well, and that goes back into the whole convenience thing of this story and the characters of Batman versus Superman. It's mainly the convenience of the story, just things just so conveniently happen. I mean, and it was like just not a great way of introducing this through them stealing data from LexCorp, and then Wonder Woman seeing these data files through an email from Bruce Wayne. It's just, I didn't like that at all. I mean, not done poorly in my opinion. Okay, and then also like Doomsday, man, that was a mess. I mean, action part was cool, but like, why? I mean, they tried to conveniently put in the fact that Zod was still there, and Lex Luthor just so easily got into this super advanced spaceship from Kryptonian, and this computer automatically understood, and it could probably speak bazillions of different languages, but it spoke perfect English. And then on top of that, it automatically took commands from this non-Kryptonian and to do whatever, and it just so happens that Doomsday is created out of this. That just is so convenient, and I just think that is not a great way to tell a story, especially for this big of a movie. And so that was a big problem there. Now, like I said, the characters in this movie, the actors and actresses behind it, way super talented for this story. I think they could have gotten a lot better, story and scripts for them, And, there are some cameos for Superman from Man of Steel. That part I won't really spoil, but it's a really cool scene. So overall, I mean, at least for Batman vs. Superman, the actors and actresses, top notch. But the script that they were given to the characters, not good at all. That's just my opinion. It could have been done much better. And I forgot to mention, did I mention Ben Affleck? Ben Affleck as Batman. Man, I cannot wait to see a standalone Batman movie with Ben Affleck because as of right now, he's my favorite version of Batman. Now, he's not the version that you're used to. This is more the Frank Miller version, the Dark Knight, and he is hardcore. He kills people, So now some people might not like that, but I really enjoyed it because if he's going to be battling these really crazy criminals who are really intent on killing him and other people, I can't see how you could not kill people. And so I like that aspect of it myself. And man, I love the Batmobile and the Batwing. They look really cool. Okay, so moving on to Deadpool. Now, the characters in this movie, they were done way better. Now, there aren't as many actors and actresses. And honestly, like Ryan Reynolds, I don't think there's going to be a better Deadpool. But even the side characters, his friend, I can't remember his friend right now, he was really great. The villain Ajax or the Transporter, I think he served his role really well. And even like the X-Men characters, specifically the CG character Colossus, I really like them. And I also like the teenage, I can't remember her name, but the Nukem, I can't remember her name, but you know who I'm talking about. I think the characters there, not only did the actors and actresses do well in playing them, but the characters were written much better in Deadpool than they were in Batman vs. Superman. I actually cared about the characters, and they were very entertaining, and they fit their comic book character really well. And so, it might seem like I'm just bashing Batman vs. Superman, but I'm not. But I'm just stating the obvious, and they were done so much better in the characters as well. So, yeah, characters, actors and actresses, really great actors and actresses in both movie, but the characters written for them were much better in Deadpool. Okay, so the last thing that I want to talk about is the special effects. Now, you would think that a movie like Batman vs. Superman, which has a budget of about $235 million, versus Deadpool, which has a budget of $58 million, that's not including marketing for either movie, would like have much better effects, especially when it's a movie that big. Okay, but this is where it just blew my mind in terms of like the differences. Okay, because you could actually see it. Okay, you don't actually have to be really into the movie to actually see this right here. So let's start with Batman vs. Superman. Okay, now Zack Snyder, ever since 300, he is known as a visual director. And most of his movies just look amazing. I would even say Sucker Punch. I mean, as horrible as the movie was, the look was just amazing. Now, in Batman v Superman, you have that very amazing Snyder look, but in some cases, you're like, what? So let's start with like the parts where I really liked. And I would say the Batman scenes that Snyder does, they are just shot so well, so stylistically done. I mean, it was like watching a real life comic book frame for frame. And so those effects were awesome. I mean, I love any scene where he was like focused on Batman. It just looked amazing. Okay. And Snyder, he does like a very dark tone. So a lot of this reminds me of Watchmen. And so those effects were done real well. Like I said, any of the Batman scenes. Now, the Superman scenes, certain parts of it, they reminded me a lot of Man of Steel, which I like, even the destruction scenes. I think those are done really well. Now, the scenes that just like kind of put you off, it's a mix, like you get a really cool shot like the Batman's parents at the beginning, but then you get a shot at the end with Doomsday in space, or like Superman floating in space. They look really bad. You know, I'm not even gonna lie to you. You gotta have to see that to believe it. And also, some of the special effects, sometimes you could tell they were like practical elements used. And I would think, like, I would say maybe the fight that Batman had to fight with all those criminals and near the end, I think that was mostly practical, which looked really, really good. But then you would have this CG mess, which is the whole Doomsday fight scene pretty much. It just looked bad, okay? And it did not look like a movie that was done by a director like Snyder, and also with a budget that big. Now, compare that to Deadpool. Now, with this limited budget of $58 million, you wouldn't expect much. But when I watched this movie, the effects to me were really, really awesome. Which means that the effects actually serve the story. They don't take you out of the actual movie. You know, whether it would be slow-mo gunshots, whether it be his little funny pinky, or whether it would be scenes with Colossus and stuff. You know, they were done really, really well, to the point where, you know, you didn't even notice the special effects. I mean, and that's a sign of a really good movie, because the special effects should actually serve the movie and not be the movie. And so that is pretty much my comparison between Batman versus Superman versus Deadpool. And as you could probably already tell, I really, really love Deadpool. But also, just from like somebody who enjoys movies, I wanted to compare these two because I anticipated these two movies so much. And, you know, both of them were announced at Comic-Con. Batman vs. Superman, people have been waiting for this for years. You know, if you read comics, you know there's a whole comic series done on it. But at Comic-Con, people were waiting for years for this. Now, Deadpool was almost not made. You know, if it wasn't for that little shot done by the director, just like test footage, and then people just went crazy over that, and you know, through a lot of hard work, they were able to get this movie made, and you know, a lot of people, including the fans, were all the better for it. And so that is pretty much my comparisons between the two. If you've seen Batman vs. Superman, what are your thoughts? And also Deadpool as well. And what are your thoughts on what my thoughts were between these two movies? You know, leave those comments and ideas below, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. And if there's another comic book movie that you are waiting for or you're excited about, please leave those ideas below too as well. Thanks for checking out this episode. And as always, if you like these videos, be sure to click on the subscribe button. And for full written content, audio content, and additional geek stuff, head over to geekoutdoors.com, and I'll see you outdoors on the very next episode.